What if the very cure meant to save a city was the seed of its destruction? Tonight, you'll step into the hushed halls of Bergenwerth, where the discovery of the old blood changed everything. One master's warning, ignored by his brightest pupil, would birth a church, a hunt, and a nightmare that no one could contain. You've seen Yharnam burning, but what if I told you the fire began long before the beast ever prowled its streets? Stay here, and I'll take you back to where healing first turned deadly. Hey guys, it's the Sleep Wizard. Tonight, I'll be guiding you through the haunting tale of the Healing Church, the School of Mensis, and the tragic fall of Yharnam. Before we get started, I'd love to know, what time are you heading to bed tonight? Drop it in the comments so I can see where in the night this story finds you. And if you enjoy drifting off to these lore-inspired stories, don't forget to subscribe so you'll have more waiting for you the next time you need them. Now, get comfortable, settle in, and let's begin. You step into Bergenwerth when the air still feels clean. The halls around you are wide and quiet. Dust drifts where long windows let in grey light. Shelves stacked with scrolls line the walls. You hear only soft steps against the floorboards and the hush of robes brushing past wooden benches. It feels peaceful, almost too still, as if the place itself waits for something. Here, questions begin to surface. Curiosity fills every room. What lies beneath the surface of the world? What waits under stone, soil, and time? No one here speaks of monsters yet. They speak of study, of discovery, of paths hidden far below that promise the unknown. Master Willem leads the way down narrow stairs. His pupils follow with lanterns raised, the flames glowing against walls cut from rock. The air grows heavy, cool, and damp the deeper they go. Long roots hang low, reaching from cracks above. The sound of boots echoes, each step a mark of the journey. They come to a door bound in iron. When Willem opens it, the breath of stale air greets them. Behind, the passages stretch into shadow. The labyrinth waits. Shapes carved into stone walls catch the firelight. Strange markings seem like words, but too worn or too twisted to read. Willem tells them to keep quiet, to observe, never to reach too far. His warning lingers. He says that eyes should seek truth with care, that too much will break the one who looks. His voice is low, measured, steady. It is not anger. It is not command. It is concern that grows from what he already knows, but will not share. The words sound vague, but each student feels weight settle in the chest. It is as if knowledge itself, the very study of the ruins they step into, could wound them. They walk on, but each glance at pale stone feels sharper. Every new chamber feels like it hides something more than carvings and broken statues. The air shifts. Silence stretches in the tunnels until it feels like each sound matters. A dripping echo from far halls feels like a message. The torch flame wavering looks like a signal. Each small detail presses on the mind. A footstep left behind on dust looks heavier than before, as if the choice to walk this deep cannot be undone. That sense grows with every turn. Nothing dramatic happens, not yet, but still tension rises. Knowledge calls, and it calls in ways that do not let them rest easy. Willem shares again his phrase, one that becomes his guide for the rest of his days. He says that they must seek wisdom without rushing, that blood cannot be their answer. It is a warning to his pupils that rattles like a riddle. To hear it is simple, but to sense the weight of it makes hands cold. If the answer is not blood, then what is it? What could be worse than seeking it as a cure? The words echo back at them as they enter the quiet rooms of the labyrinth. The firelight flickers on thick stone pillars. Behind those stone walls, secret whispers seem trapped like air bubbles in ice. Willem's restraint is not born from fear, but from experience. His pupils do not know what he once saw, but they sense in him the mark of heavy knowledge. He has not chased contact with what lies beneath, because he knows the mind is fragile. Too much truth presses until it cracks, like glass too thin to carry weight. He teaches them to stop before it breaks. He teaches that silence protects where curiosity can wound, that guidance carries calm on the surface, but also dread hiding under it. The thought that a single wrong step could shatter not just the self, but all who follow weighs more than stone above their heads. And yet, as the group leaves those deep halls and steps back into the world above, silence remains unbroken. No beast has stirred. No form has risen from the dark. Byrgenwerth waits on the threshold of everything. The air in the high windows feels like it holds its breath. Books sit closed. Gardens outside sway in the breeze, but feel quiet in a different way. It is the kind of stillness that comes just before change, when none yet see, but some already sense it. Among the students, one carries a restlessness that grows. Lawrence feels every hesitation as a cage. When Willem speaks of restraint, Lawrence hears delay. Where others accept patience, he feels hunger. He does not want waiting to be the answer. His eyes follow his master, but linger instead on what the master refuses. The thought grows in him that truth is not found in silence, but in action. And if that action carries risk, then so be it. His ambition glows, faint at first, but begins to shine brighter than the lanterns in deep corridors. The conflict is not loud. It is not fought in words or blows. It is smaller, quieter, but more lasting than either. Willem stands on one side, guiding them to pause, to stand back, to guard the mind. Lawrence takes his step toward mercy, purpose, and healing, even if it means touching what should stay untouched. Inside this difference lies the seed of all that unfolds. You see it then, in this silence. It is not beast claws scraping the stones. Not yet. It is simply the weight of knowledge waiting to become blood. The students stand between their master and their fellow pupil, not knowing which path will lead them forward. It is evening again in Byrgenwerth. Lamps are lit. The leaves outside ripple in dim light. The smell of dust and old paper spreads on the air. And in this calm, what matters most is a choice already stirring. Willem holds to one truth: caution. Lawrence reaches for another: ambition. The halls remain filled with whispers. Pages turn slowly. Steps echo as pupils move from one study to another. But beneath this surface, the divide has begun. It is not seen, but it is there now. One master who believes knowledge destroys if misused. One student who believes healing matters even more than risk. From this break, the rest will follow. It is here, in this early moment before the old blood is touched, that the conflict takes root. You feel it not in sudden noise or violence, but in a thin air that presses against skin. The silence stretches too long. Breath holds too tightly. A city beyond cannot hear yet, but already lines are drawn. Willem closes the door and keeps it shut. Lawrence waits with eyes that keep turning back. One offers patience, the other prepares action. Out of that decision grows what will become the healing church. And from that, the beginning of Yharnam's longest night. Why would a student, bright and trusted, turn away from his teacher's words? You picture Lawrence sitting in the long hall, lamps burning close to midnight. Around him, pages from worn books sit scattered, each filled with marks of study, each holding questions that press on him. He remembers Willem's warnings, calm words that asked for silence and patience. But when he looks at the ink on those pages, and when he steps into towns where sickness lingers without cure, he feels another weight. It is not only curiosity that drives him, it is a kind of mercy, a thought that waiting is the same as watching people suffer. He feels that silence is not a guard. To him, silence is cruelty. Lawrence does not hate Willem. He respects him, but that respect bends under pressure. He begins to believe that the truth his master fears can be used for good. His vision is not about power or glory. It is about giving help to a people desperate for aid. He wants to offer more than words or study. He wants to give touchable relief, fast, sharp, and real. And so he reaches for what Willem refused, the old blood. At first, he offers it quietly. Small vials brought to those who can no longer walk. You see a woman lying in a narrow bed, her skin pale, her breath weak. Lawrence guides a servant to raise her head, and a trace of the thick blood touches her lips. It is dark, almost black in the lamplight, but she drinks, and her chest steadies. The coughing eases. Her shaking hands grow calm. For the first time in years, she smiles with sudden strength. Hope returns to faces around her. You feel the quiet gasp in the room. It is not a scholar's note or word. It is relief, simple and immediate. Another time, a father holds out his hands before him. The joints had stiffened. His fingers had curled shut, keeping him from work, keeping him from holding the child who waits beside him. After the vial, the fingers stretch open again. He lifts his hands in front of his face, almost not believing they obey. The boy steps into his arms and the man weeps. In those moments, the past warnings ring in Lawrence's mind, but the proof feels too strong. Fear cannot outweigh these signs of healing. Yet even as these cures spread, unease grows. A woman cured of weakness now keeps standing through entire nights, pacing without sleep. A young hunter with broken ribs not only returns to the streets within days, but also moves with strength beyond his memory. It looks like healing, but it feels unnatural. Nearby, whispers start. Some cured patients are changing in quiet ways, letting the moments slip too long without sleep, eating more than before, hearing sounds no one else can. Lawrence notes these things, but he tells himself that every cure has side effects. He convinces himself he can control the course of it. His choice of action over restraint gains followers. Students who once shared Willem's pace now see real results in Lawrence's work. They admire how quickly he acts. They admire how he steps outside the long patience of study and instead takes risk to produce hope. More voices gather around him. He builds not only a practice, but a vision. Where Willem offered hidden words, Lawrence promises a miracle ready to be shared in the open. Slowly, a circle of trust forms. People begin to bring their sick from surrounding villages. On quiet carts and carried by family, they appear in hidden courtyards, waiting for a chance to touch that dark vial. At first, the changes are small, set aside as rumor or chance. A tailor ends his long pain, but wakes sometimes screaming in the night, claws scraping across wood floors. A clerk cured of fever later holds strange strength in his muscles, snapping a door hinge without meaning to. The relief they felt remains true, but a shadow begins to stretch behind it. When Lawrence notices, he does not stop. He only tells himself the work needs refining. Every discovery, he thinks, first comes with mistakes. You see him standing in dim light before a group of followers. His eyes shine not with sickness, but with faith in what he is building. He speaks to them of healing that ignores all chains, healing that can reach whoever needs it. His tone grows firm. He no longer sounds like a student under a teacher's hand. He speaks like a founder, shaping a path larger than himself. The circle of work gains structure, then followers, then buildings. Now the practice is not only a man with a dream, but a church built from that dream. That church rises on one truth. The old blood heals. The very thing Willem swore against now sits at the core of a new order. And through the city, the blood begins to spread. At the start, it comes quietly, offered to those in deep need. Then it comes to more, passed from hand to hand, cup to mouth. Families welcome it like bread. Neighbors trade stories of its grace. Lawrence looks over these crowds and sees what Willem could not see. He sees people saved. Yet under the surface, what begins as kindness grows into something harder. The blood makes bodies strong, but it also bends them. What once seemed like small side effects now appear darker. In some places, a man healed of fever is found days later no longer in his bed, but crouched in the street, his back broken by a shape that rises out of him. In another home, a mother cries for her child, who healed from sickness only to grow long limbs and a face unrecognizable, fleeing into the night. Still, the blood flows. Still Lawrence pushes onward. He tells himself that the good outweighs the dark, that accidents can be controlled, that it is better to heal 1,000 and lose a few than to hold back and watch all suffer. But the line cannot stay hidden. The cures, which once brought joy, now carry whispers of fear. Families whisper of shadows moving against windows. Strange howls in the night shake even strong hunters. The flow of the blood does not stop. Its spread grows faster than the words about it. Everywhere it goes, hope clings at first, but soon dread walks just behind it. Lawrence continues at full pace, speed above patience, action above doubt. His ambition plants the roots of an institution that soon becomes larger than any one man. Students flock to him, fresh recruits ready to hold the blood as holy. Scholars bend to his vision. The church stands, tall and noticeable against the city's sky. Its presence speaks of relief, but also control. For underneath gilded chalices and long robes sits the same danger Willem feared. The moment comes when even Lawrence can no longer pretend the balance is safe. Healing is no longer pure relief. Healing has begun to turn into transformation. What began as trembling hands stilled now becomes claws. What began as a frail step restored becomes a lunge through doors and walls. Each act of mercy carries cost, and that cost grows. Still, he does not stop. He does not hold back. He believes his work must continue, because stopping now would mean failure, blame, ruin. His steps move forward always, past mercy, past caution, into ambition, too set in place to change. He is no longer a student. He is founder of the Healing Church, an order built on blood. The very substance forbidden by Willem now stands as the foundation of all Yharnam's faith. In the chants of worshippers, in the chalices passed through eager hands, in the veins of families waiting for hope, the old blood flows. And through that flow, the city begins to shift. At dawn, the church steeples shine in first light. Bells sound on the hour. Families pray, children laugh. On the surface, it seems like salvation. But when night comes, shadows press against doors, and strange sounds scratch from rooftops. The gift Lawrence offered has already turned. What began as cure has grown into curse. And soon, its reach will fill every street of Yharnam. The blood spreads faster than anyone expects. At first, It is passed among families who whisper of relief, small cures that feel like blessings. A wife watches her husband rise from a long illness. A child takes steps again after weeks of weakness. The word moves from door to door. Vials travel in pockets and drawers, then into cupboards stocked beside bread and water. The miracle is visible everywhere in small ways. But just as quick as the cures rise, the changes arrive. At night, bodies twist in silence inside narrow homes. The sound of joints moving the wrong way fills the empty air. By morning, some patients are gone, leaving only broken floors and marks that look too much like claws. Old Yharnam feels the weight first. The district lies lower in the city, its alleys packed with smoke from heavy chimneys and its floors dark with ash. For years, coughs carry through narrow streets. People here know disease well, and so they are eager when the blood reaches them. But healing in Old Yharnam comes tied to another sickness. The ashen blood plague rises like a shadow cast over every window. It moves quick, filling families at once. Some who drink the blood find strength again, while others bend into shapes no longer human. The line between relief and horror is thin enough to vanish. It becomes impossible to tell who will survive and who will begin to change. At dusk, lamps glow in each doorway, but the streets are not safe. You can hear muffled prayers carried by the air, words asking for mercy as bodies twist behind shut doors. The plague has no clear pattern. One man healed of fever stands tall in the morning, but lies broken and clawed by nightfall. Another woman lies sick for weeks, but never once shows sign of turning. Neighbors gather in small groups. They whisper to each other about who to trust, who might carry the curse. Each word carries suspicion. No one knows if blood given in kindness will turn to ruin. The smell of wood fires lingers, but it mixes with another scent. Burning fur. At night, the flames are not only in hearths, but tall piles stacked along the alleys. Torches rise, shadows shake on the walls. Beasts stumble out of doors, their cries mixing with human voices stuck between words and growls. Hunters appear then, cloaked and silent, except for the strike of steel. They move as if they are part of the houses themselves. One moment the street is clear, the next a beast is struck down, its body dragged toward a waiting pyre. The cries echo until they are sealed under smoke. Families watch from windows with shutters drawn close. Mothers hold children tighter, telling them not to look outside. Every fire means another house silenced. The hunters never speak loud in the open. They finish their work fast, then vanish back into the dark. Old Yharnam learns to wait for the torches. Every evening bells sound and prayers are spoken. Families gather to the sound of scraping steel waiting outside. The church offers chants and sermons from above, but in Old Yharnam, the words sound thin. The people know mercy is not what waits in the streets. Executioners move there, but it is not an army apart. It is the church itself sending these cloaked hunters. The same church that brings vials of blood into homes also sends men to cut down those who change because of it. The image becomes strange to those who see both sides. A priest passes by in mourning, reciting lines of comfort, hands raised. In the same street that night, hunters move under the same symbol, their weapons wet and their hands grim. The people of Old Yharnam begin to understand. The church heals them, but also ends them. It is savior in daylight, destroyer in dark. No other power holds the city. If they refuse the blood, sickness may take them. If they accept it, they may become beasts. And if they become beasts, the church's hunters will make sure their bodies do not last until dawn. The ash and blood plague gives rise to rituals on street corners. People gather at steps, huddled close together, voices loud but desperate. They chant for cure, but their eyes drift always toward alleys where shadows move. Parents press children close, telling them to be still. Some lift their eyes to church towers, where bells toll without pause. The noise covers the screams that sometimes carry from the far edge of the street. Fires burn higher, as if they are part of worship, but their smoke draws shapes across the skyline that look more like warnings. Hunters sharpen their teeth against silence. They gather in the hidden rooms of the workshop, far from the people they serve. In those rooms, blades snap open, bone saws clatter against oilstone. Heavy guns are lifted and checked in quiet. They say little. When bells ring again, they leave together into the dark. People call them protectors at dawn, but by night their boots track blood across cobbles. They are healers of another kind, using steel instead of vials. And each step they take removes another chance of truth ever spreading past these streets. Because the hunters do not only kill beasts, they burn what remains. They erase evidence that the blood itself could be at fault. Above, the people continue to believe. Lawrence sees the city bending. To him, it is no longer just about mercy. It becomes need for control. The blood must be trusted. If rumors of beasts overwhelm, chaos will follow. So the hunts must continue, sharp and hidden. The cures must be preached louder, as though they come without cost. To choose silence now would unravel everything. And so, instead of protecting mercy, he begins to protect order. He shapes the church as guardian of both roles, the hand that heals and the hand that strikes. In quiet, he convinces himself this is still kindness. To others, it looks different. The people of old Yharnam live with both sides pressing on their lives. In the morning light, children laugh, run past chapels, drink from the wells. Neighbors share food in small baskets. Markets open with shouts. But each evening, the same people move indoors, fasten shutters, and extinguish lamps. They listen for claws scraping stones, for hunters clearing alleys, for the smell of fur carried on smoke. The miracle of healing and the terror of fire exist on the same street, separated only by the sun's descent. They learn to live not with trust, but with hesitation. Is the blood a blessing or a curse? No one can answer. Few dare to ask. Each passing night stretches the divide further. Families cling harder to faith because the alternative is only fear. The church grows stronger as the streets grow weaker. Everyone can feel the change, though none can name it. Voices that comfort in daylight also shake hands that strike down neighbors in the dark. The savior and the betrayer have the same face. The quiet executioners will not speak of their charge. The people will not speak of what they see. And so the silence grows. In the distance, church towers rise high, but below them, old Yharnam sits scarred by fire and ash. The people walk under banners by day, but by night, they bury neighbors in charred ground. The blood continues to spread. There is no stopping it, not now. Hope and fear stay linked together, turning through cycles that no door can keep out. And in this atmosphere, new voices begin to rise inside the church itself. Some whisper that killing beasts is not enough. Others say that healing with blood is too simple. A few begin to look higher, away from the streets entirely, seeking answers beyond the sky. Out of fire and silence, the church begins to divide. Its own factions, born from fear and ambition, step forward into their separate paths. One seeks only to protect the streets. Another lifts eyes to the stars. And yet another begins planning rituals hidden even deeper below. A church that once spoke with one voice begins to split apart inside its own halls. The same walls that rose from Lawrence's promise of healing now carry quieter sounds. Steps no longer move toward one room. They divide down corridors, fading into different wings. What was once one vision begins to scatter into three. Outside, the streets are still troubled with firelight and fear. But inside the church, the division grows stronger than the unity. The split is not marked by loud arguments or open breaks. It appears instead in the choices different scholars make, and in the secret meetings they hold apart from each other. The hunters form first, hidden from the light. Their halls do not stand high with towers or open gardens. They meet inside the workshop, a building tucked behind the city, its walls heavy with smells of oil and steel. These hunters are chosen to guard the streets quietly, though their task is not protection alone. They serve as the hand that removes what the healing blood has created. They are to make sure no one outside the city ever sees what happens after the cures are given. For them, silence is stronger than prayer. Their dream is to keep the city safe by removing its sickness in secret. They call it protection, but the work is harsher than that name makes it sound. Then comes another path, one that does not look to the ground at all. The choir chooses to search the sky. They believe the blood is not the final answer, but a step toward a higher truth. These ministers leave the crowded streets behind. They climb to the highest chapels, where the air is thinner and the stars shine above the city smoke. They gather there, gazing upward, whispering words they do not let others hear. Their robes are different, their silence deeper than the scholars they once walked with at Bergenwerth. In their hands, scriptures are not filled with healing words, but with marks of constellations and fragments of sound they hope belong to something greater. Their dream is not protection, it is communion with the ones above. And in another hall, far from the towers and workshops, there is the School of Mensis. Their meetings feel different, not gathered around tables, not gathered in worship, but gathered in chambers filled with objects others avoid. Among them sit cord-like strands, pale and strange, carried from those who once bore the mark of great ones. They whisper over these objects with fevered voices, louder as the nights pass. They do not search the stars like the choir. They do not strike through alleys like the hunters. They press inward, deeper into what lies hidden in lost rituals. They dream of contact that goes beyond sight, hoping to reach a realm beyond the waking world. Each path carries a dream, but each dream moves against the others. The hunters search for control of the curse. The choir prays for communion in the sky. Mensis demands direct contact no matter the cost. Each vision seems clear in its own setting, but in the heart of the church they begin to grind against each other like stones pressing into cracks. There is no longer one body moving together. Instead, you find chambers meeting apart, doors closed fast, whispers held so low that the echo of breath fills more space than the words themselves. You can walk into a side chapel at dusk and hear 3 different prayers rising at once. They do not match. They do not share rhythm or meaning. The sound layers thin and heavy until it feels as if the building itself is straining to carry their weight. It used to be that a hall filled with chanting drew calm. Now the sound shakes the heart instead. Dissonance grows where harmony once lived. The stained glass in the grand chapel shows this more than words can. At noon, the sun passes through tall windows filled with green, red, and gold. Each pane works together to throw a picture of light onto the floor. But as the church splits, the glass feels different. The light still passes through, but it breaks into pieces, scattering across the stone in separate colors. What once formed one design now seems like fragments. The image is still there if you look at it whole, but the eye is drawn to the broken beams stretching apart. This glass becomes the perfect mirror of the church itself. Still one building standing high, but fractured inside into beams of light that no longer join. Those who gather in the workshop polish weapons instead of holding vials. The choir whispers to their hidden daughter in chambers where stone grows damp. Mensis speaks over chords as though they are voices, though no sound comes from them. Each group wants the same thing, though they speak of it in different ways. They all want to rise beyond the limits of men. They all want to reach past sickness and fear into a larger truth. But it is their different choices that draw them apart. None will return to patience. None will hold to silence. They are carried forward, but not in one direction. The hunters refuse to share what they know with the others. Their work cannot be questioned without breaking the thin veil over the city. The choir hides itself high, speaking to no one but themselves and the unseen presence that waits in the dark behind them. Mensis shuts their halls completely, taking even their pupils into shadow to whisper over bodies that should have been laid to rest long ago. The split is complete not in name, but in practice. They are three bodies tied together by the word of church, but apart in every task. The air of the city begins to reflect the change. On the streets, people still look up to the same towers, walk by the same chapels, give prayers at the same altars. But above them sit three different faces, each pulling at the city in their own way. None of them work toward the same goal. The hunters bring silence through steel. The choir searches the sky for alien voices. Mensis searches for minds to shift into other realms. Together, these paths begin to shake the city from its roots. The promise that once stood, healing through mercy, has bent into divisions. Mercy is no longer the goal. Instead, each path seeks transcendence, but their roads fight each other like currents crossing in water. People in the city sense something is amiss, even if they do not name it. Hopelessness creeps in softer now, not through fire in their streets, but through doubt whispered at night. The church, which once gave certainty, now carries secrets branching in too many directions. The seeds of collapse are planted here in silence. The city does not see them grow yet, but you can feel the trembling. The workshop trains more hunters to keep fire hidden at night. The choir climbs higher into their tower, listening more carefully to the presence that waits unseen. Mensis builds halls designed not for teaching, but for ritual, every night pushing further into shadows. The weight of their division presses against the city even before beasts press out of houses. So the church stands as one only in name. Its three limbs stretch in different paths, bound together only by ambition. Without the ambition, the split would be clear. With it, the building still stands, its spire rising over Yharnam. But on the inside, it is no longer one body. This slow fracture will not heal. It will only spread until the cracks climb all the way to the top. And among the three, one path rises higher than the rest. The choir, in its lofty chapel, finds a strange answer waiting for them. Not a man, not a beast, but a messenger from beyond, hidden in the dark. It is there that the church takes its next step away from people and into the hands of something that no citizen of Yharnam would ever understand. High above the city, where the smoke from chimneys drifts apart and the rooftops lie far beneath, the choir kneels in silence. Their voices rise not toward any god that the people of Yharnam would know. They whisper prayers into the dark, and those prayers are carried not to heaven, but to something else. Something that waits far beyond sight, and yet also beneath the stones of a hidden chapel. They do not speak this name loudly in streets, nor print it on parchments for others to read, but in the quiet space where their worship gathers, one presence answers them. Its name is Ebrietas. Ebrietas is no overseer of earth or sky. She does not stand with the people, and she does not look down from spires. She waits in the deep, far below the great altar hidden beneath the grand cathedral. There, in the dark, the choir finds her. They call her not beast and not demon, though to common eyes, she would not resemble anything human. To them, she's a daughter of the great ones left behind, a figure of pale form and slow movement, with limbs that press outward in shapes unfamiliar. To find her is to step out of the city and into another truth. For the choir, this truth is what they believe the rest of the church has failed to understand. When the ministers first come before Ebrietas, they are no longer simple priests. They do not hold themselves as guides for Yharnam's bodies. They shift into seekers of greater sight. In the glow of lanterns that flicker faintly against alien limbs, they pray differently. Their eyes do not lower to the stone floors as before, but tilt upward, as if stars shine even here in darkness. Each murmur rises into that space where Ebrietas sways softly, listening, answering not with spoken words but with vision and pressure on the mind. In those moments, prayer ceases to be a request. It becomes an invitation to see beyond. The change is clear. The choir members once gave sermons that taught healing through blood and words of mercy. Now, their voices trail into songs, without rhythm, without scripture. They sound more like stargazers repeating strange patterns to themselves. Their robes still hang around them, but their faces reflect a different hunger. They no longer seek to comfort the people outside. They seek only to rise upward in understanding, though their feet stay rooted on the ground of ritual chambers. They lift their eyes each night but kneel just the same, pressing their foreheads to stone, waiting for another mark of insight to settle inside them. Ordinary Yharnamites could not comprehend this. The shopkeepers in the markets, the hunters crouching in workshops, the mothers kneeling beside their sick, none of them see any figure waiting beneath their church. They believe in healing blood as a gift, in priests who speak promises of wellness. To them, the minister's eyes still look the same. They cannot guess that these eyes no longer look back at them with the same measure of care. The distance grows without notice. What was once a bridge between people becomes a chasm no sermon can fill. For the choir, what matters now is sight. Not sight in the sense of seeing streets or daylight, but the kind that peers into truths outside the world. To reach it, they do not hesitate to change themselves. Their studies push them into shaping body and soul. They drink more than blood. They meditate until their minds waver between sleeping and waking. They place strange objects against their faces, hoping to receive from them what normal eyes cannot give. In pursuit of vision, pain becomes ritual and transformation becomes devotion. Each mark of change, each stretch of mind away from human ground, is welcomed as a higher step. You might walk through Yharnam and not see this. The choir moves high above the market streets, far from homes, where towers block the sun, and where stone halls echo with nothing but their voices. They wait there, in silence, for the day they believe the people will open their eyes and join them. They claim to hold knowledge wide enough for all, but until then, they do not mingle with ordinary voices. They bear patience in this, convinced that the people are not yet ready to see what they see. And Ebrietas listens. She is their proof. She is the silent messenger that their path is true. When she bends near, when her limbs slide across stone, when her glow catches their eyes, they feel what they call communion. Not trust in blood anymore, not prayers for healing flesh, but something higher. She does not give words, but she grants vision. And once you see through her, your eyes no longer return to what they were. Shapes once plain become filled with signs that only the blessed can read. The choir call this gift revelation, but they feel also the pull it carries, because the vision comes with loss. When they see as Ebrietta sees, they stop belonging to their own people. They stop speaking as neighbors or as healers. Their speech turns hollow. Their touch changes even in small gestures. No mother who steps into their halls would recognize the tenderness she once saw. No child would take comfort in their smile. They have stepped past belonging, drawn into communion that cuts their roots from the city itself. And yet, they do not regret. They welcome the separation. For the choir, this is the price of knowledge. So the church, through the choir, turns far away from humanity. Where once the aim was mercy, there now stands cosmic guidance. No patient's bed or street-side prayer can compare anymore. Their sermons no longer touch the ground where families walk. Instead, they whisper into the sky and into the void, asking questions that do not concern farmers or children, but instead the great ones that linger beyond reach. For them, healing is too small. Redemption of blood is too narrow. They want vision beyond earth itself. The city shifts under this change, though it does not see it directly. The ministers stand apart, their eyes glazed, their hands raised to something no townsman can feel. When worshippers kneel before them, they kneel not to caretakers, but to seekers already gone. The gap widens each year until the choir stands almost as a separate church within a church, one that preaches not to men, but to the cosmos. And so, while Yharnam burns each night with the scourge, while hunters walk the alleys and mothers hush their children, the choir remains high above, their voices trailing into the unseen, their bodies bent toward Ebrietas. They leave earth behind. They refuse to look down. Their prayers stretch in patterns, in sounds that no ordinary ear can name. They call themselves still part of the church, but their aim carries them past it. Their bonds do not tie to mercy or control. They tie only to that great one who waits in the quiet dark. The church, by letting them climb so high, allows itself to step further away from humanity. The choir does not answer to the people. They move in shadows far out of reach, and every time they return to Ebrietas, they sink deeper into the divide. The city may not know of this. The people may not realize that their caretakers no longer look back at them. Yet, the distance is real. The humans remain human, but the choir seeks no such fate. They seek to ascend, and in doing so, they cut away the very root of what bound them to Yharnam in the first place. The hunters may slash at beasts below. The scholars of Mensis may whisper over their hidden objects. But here in the high places, the choir speaks to what no common man dares even to imagine. Their prayers are answered, yes, but by a presence that strips them of their place among their own people. They gain vision, but they lose their ground. And in this, the church falls another step. Its ministers no longer unite with citizens. Healing, once made a gift, is now forgotten before cosmic communion. Humanity does not hold their loyalty. They choose the void above it. They call it sight, but it severs roots. Where the choir ascends, the School of Mensis takes another path. Instead of looking upward for stars or downward to Ebrietas, they build rituals aimed to drag minds beyond waking life. And from those rituals, nightmare worlds begin to bleed into Yharnam's own. One group within the church does not stop at prayer, or even sight. They want more than visions of stars or closeness with something waiting in secret halls. They reach instead toward what lies beyond waking life itself. Their path is not stillness, not ritual silence, but restless ambition. They gather in rooms that echo all night with their voices. Lamps smoke, and the smell of wax clings to the curtains. The name carried by their circle is the School of Mensis. Their leader is a man called Mikolash. He is restless the way Lawrence once was, but less concerned with mercy and more consumed with knowledge. He wants not to heal, but to unlock a contact beyond this world, and he leads his scholars toward that aim without pause. You step into their halls, and it does not feel like any school you have known. The bodies seated at long tables are not awake in the ordinary way. They have followed Mikolash into rituals that do not end with scripture or prayer, but with stares that never break. In front of them lies pale remains, cords kept in sealed jars, torn pieces carried from those who once held close ties to the Great Ones. These umbilical strands are treated as sacred tools, marks that might open a way where words cannot. Each night, the scholars gather closer around them. Their whispers grow in force until the air itself shakes. It is not the chanting of a choir or the calm measure of a sermon. It feels more like the whole group trying desperately to speak at once, as if volume itself could make a great one listen. The walls of Morning Hall, where their greatest ritual is held, are covered with markings. Ash from lamps has stained the ceilings dark. Long curtains sway where draughts move under old stone. The sound of their chanting climbs louder, then falls to silence, then rises again in waves. At first it sounds only strange, but if you stay longer inside, it changes. The noise worms into your head, even if you try to close your ears with your hands. The rhythm does not match human speech, and yet every voice moves as though led by one hand. What presses from them is not music, not learning, but a plea that grows heavier each night. The umbilical cords spread through their rituals. They handle them with reverence, pressing them close like relics. Some scholars bind them in cloth. Others keep them in glass vessels filled with clouded liquid. When they pray over them, their eyes roll until they stare upward. Lines are drawn into their faces, cheeks hollow, mouths dry, but they do not care. They believe the cords are bridges, that bloodlines can link them to the space where great ones dwell. Each whisper is meant to call out to one such being, to draw it near, to become midwives to something new. This is not healing, not communion in the way of the choir. They want more than vision. They want birth. On the night the moon turns, the city itself marks their ritual. It begins quietly. In the evening, Yharnam feels the same as any other troubled day, with the smell of fires and the distant sound of hunters at work. But as the hour stretches, the sky shifts color, pale shades mixing like spilled ink into the dark blue. The city sleeps uneasy. Then the red moon rises. Its glow spreads heavy across rooftops, and its color stains the streets. Mothers hush their children and shut every shutter tight. No sermon of mercy can explain what burns above them. It feels not natural, not part of the patterns of sky they once trusted. As the red moon reaches high, shapes become visible that were hidden before. Amygdalae, vast creatures with long limbs and twisting forms, cling to the walls of towers like gargoyles too large for the stone to support. None of the common people of Yharnam had seen them before, for their eyes were closed. But now, under the glow, the veil falls. Everywhere people look, They find these figures staring silently back at them, massive and still, but too alive to be statues. Some kneel in the streets, covering their faces. Others scream and run. The world has not changed its bodies. They were there all along. But the red moon strips away peace. It shows the truth that was always present, yet unseen. Inside the halls of Mensis, the ritual reaches its breaking point. The scholars do not stop as the moon rises. Instead, their voices grow hysterical. Breath wheezes from cracked throats. Hands claw at the cords, pressing them against their faces, holding them tight to their hearts. Mikolash himself paces the hall like a man driven by fire, calling out words without pause. His mask gleams in the faint torchlight. His voice mixes into the others until it is hard to tell one from the whole. And then the silence strikes, sudden and stark. Their bodies go limp, their heads hang loose. For an instant, it looks like death. But this is not silence as rest. It is silence like the pause before screaming begins. Their bodies stay in those halls, but their minds are pulled elsewhere. They awaken in a nightmare not built of ordinary streets or skies, but of twisted versions of both. Their city echoes around them in ways that warp and stretch. Stairways lead nowhere. Doors open onto void. The sound of a baby fills the air, high and without pause, its cries unending. Scholars walk in these visions, but they are not whole. Some call to each other without knowing their own names. Others stagger as though drunk, their eyes wide but empty. Mikolash himself wanders, his mask still upon his face, murmuring half-finished thoughts as though he is trapped in echo. What they sought was contact. What they found was prison. The great one they touched is Murgo, an infant presence tied to the nightmare. Its cry fills every moment in that world. The scholars cannot wake from it. They do not sit in calm communion. They do not share in wisdom. They are trapped inside noise that never ends. Their failure is not quiet madness, but endless screaming. Their ambition has not lifted them to understanding. It has pinned them inside a dream that will not release its hold. Outside, their bodies remain in the ritual chamber. To walk there is to see rows of corpses locked in seats, their heads bent forward, their limbs sagging loose. The air smells like dust mixed with blood that no longer runs. To one side, fragile shells pace back and forth. Scholars whose minds are gone but whose bodies wander without direction. The hall no longer feels like a school or even a ritual room. It feels like an abandoned hive, the buzzing of thought gone wrong still clinging to the walls. The city does not hear these screams the way the trapped scholars do, but it begins to feel the bleed of the nightmare into waking life. The red moon does not vanish. The amygdalae remain. Those who never wanted to see now see at every turn. Hunters themselves sense the change. It is not only beasts in the alleys now. It is nightmares pressing into reality. Parish bells ring without pattern. People wake in the night unable to speak the things pressing on their minds. Yharnam steps into a new stage of terror, born not from sickness but from dream. Mensis succeeds in one sense. They gain presence. They touch a great one. They step outside the limits of their kind. But what they gain destroys what they were. None of them return whole. The ritual room, once a place of ambition, becomes a grave. Mikolash and his scholars are remembered not for the answers they reached, but for the prison they built for themselves. Their path shows that to reach too far is not to hold truth, but to dissolve into its weight. The umbilical cords, meant as bridges, become burned symbols of their failure. They gave their lives to them, and in return, their minds twisted apart. The dream is real, but not one of peace. The nightmare holds them, their feet wandering halls that never end, their eyes wide to sights that carry no wisdom. In Yharnam, their work leaves ghosts without bodies and bodies without souls. The people continue under the red moon. Its glow does not pass. They hold hands tighter each night, whispering prayers that no longer reach comfort. Somewhere in the city, hunters sharpen their blades. They will be the ones pressed to address what Mensis has unleashed. For if scholars are trapped in dream, their results walk free in waking streets, and steel must face them. And so the weight shifts again, from broken halls of learning into blood-soaked alleys where hunters keep watch. Who watches the streets when the scholars lose control? The hunters do. They come out after the bells ring and people shut their doors. They begin where others stop, picking up the work that the healing blood has twisted loose. They are not preachers or teachers. They are the ones the church will not speak of, but the ones the city must live beside every night. Their story begins with German. He is not like Willem or Lawrence. He does not sit above in waiting halls or preach in chapels. He builds. He makes things with his hands, shaping wood, steel, and leather into weapons ready to be held. His workshop is not filled with books or blood vials, but with fittings, saws, chains, and gears. Inside the workshop, the lamps burn low. Tables rest heavy with tools. You can see blades half-shaped, sets of armor waiting for straps, hammers dark with oil, and books sitting closed, but marked with sketches of designs. He works with precision. Each piece he makes is meant for a fight that is not spoken of in daylight. The hunter's weapons fold and snap like bones. They change shapes in an instant. A cleaver stretches into a long blade. A cane straightens into a whip. They are not meant to rest on a shelf. They are meant to strike, to tear, and then to be used again without pause. You can hear the sound of the workshop at night, the rasp of sharpening stones, the clack of wood frames, the gentle hiss of oil rubbed on steel. The hunters are trained here. They learn to use what German shapes. They are taught not just how to swing a blade, but how to move as if they are shadow, how to use speed to match strength, how to strike and leave no witness but the burning remains left behind. Yharnam never sees these lessons, but each time smoke rises from old Yharnam, or each time a howl is cut short in the alleys, it carries proof of their hands at work. They do not pray before they begin. They whisper words for themselves quietly, short lines asking that what they do will not consume them. Then they move into streets most never dare to tread. Hunters were once men who hoped in cures. Now they are killers sworn to guard the city by ending those very cures once they rot. Their coats grow heavy with blood across long nights. When morning sun comes, they clean their blades, fold their cloaks, and return the same way they left. Yet this return offers no peace. The more they kill, the more they follow the path of those they strike down. The blood stains not only their coats, but their minds. A fight makes their arms ache, their vision shake. They smell fur and ash even when not in battle. In time, their bodies tremble with strange urges. They cut down beasts with fury, but each battle drags them closer to the same forms they hate. In the streets, you would hear the sound before seeing them. A hunter's saw rattling against bone. A gun firing once in the dark. The fast crash of claws against cobblestones. Then silence, broken only by heavy breathing. You would smell oil, iron, and damp cloth marked with sweat and blood. And if you stepped too close, you might hear the whisper of some half-finished prayer. Most hunters never speak loudly during their work. If they raise their voice, it is only to call out to another hunter nearby. They do not do this to be remembered as heroes. They do it because the church commands it and because no one else will. Gehrman does not stop building. He seems bound to this workshop, shaping weapon after weapon, guiding men and women sent to him with eyes too tired to refuse. He sees each one take up arms. He sees many never return. The tools he shapes are not gifts. They are instruments made for people who will vanish, either under teeth and claw, or under the shaking madness that grows inside them with each hunt completed. His work keeps the hunters ready, but it carries their burden back to him as well. He shelters them, teaches them, and sees them undone. The hunters do not cure. They cannot undo what the blood has started. They only end it. Their fights are not victories that bring joy. They are cleanings, removals, and swift silences. Each beast cut down used to be a man, a woman, a child. Each is recognized before being burned. The hunters know this. They know that mercy is not what stands in their cloaks. They carry knives that cut not only beasts, but the hope that Yharnam still believes in above. By walking the streets and doing what no priest can say in sermons, they make sure the city still prays by day while burning by night. But every hunter sees the cost. The more they work, the closer they stand to the edge of what they kill. Bit by bit, their faces waver in glass. Their reflections twitch like those of the prey they follow. Blades grow heavier in their hands, though the night does not shorten. Even their dreams fill with snarls echoing from alleys. Their minds change as slowly as a wound that will not close. They begin the hunter's guardians. They end as the very scourge they pretend to destroy. This truth is seen most sharply in their hero. Ludwig, the man people once called the Holy Blade. He was leader of hunts, the blade lifted overhead by the faith of hunters and by the prayers of the hopeful. Families whispered blessings of his name, and they spoke of his strength as if it answered them all. For a time, it seemed possible that one man could hold against the plague. But Ludwig did not stand apart from the blood he fought. In time, he turned. First his eyes went strange, then his body bent, his shape larger and heavier. At last, he became the beast he once stood against. To his hunters, this was not just a tragedy. It was a warning. If even the one who bore their greatest trust could be taken, then none could stay whole. The workshop shows why the church turns to hunters in silence. This secret arm holds no sermons, no cures, and no prayers aloud. It makes weapons that pierce, tear, and end. Those weapons are built to undo the effects of the blood that the church itself spreads across Yharnam. Every beast cut down testifies to that truth. While in daylight, the healing church offers hope in glass vials. By night, its own hunters bleed to erase the proof of failure. They are trained killers not for the city's good alone, but for the church's control. They are the answer to its mistake, though the people will never know this. So Gehrman sits in his workshop. He raises new pupils, sharpens their blades, checks the snaps of cleavers, oils the chains of saws. He sends them out as he always has, and one by one, he sees them vanish into blood. To him, the work never ends. To them, the hunts never truly close. The hunters are not legends. They do not rest in halls of victory. They fall in silence, cursed by the very system that made them. The hunters are caught in a cycle. The blood makes men into beasts. The church spreads the blood. The hunters then burn the beast to keep the streets clear. And through it, the hunters themselves slide into the same fate. Gehrman cannot end this. He watches over it instead. He becomes less a teacher and more a custodian of failure, repeating the same work though the outcome never shifts. He is pressed into a task that devours his own students, and he is trapped within it. tending tools, watching the fall of every man and woman who enters his hall. The streets of Yharnam carry this cycle each night. A family prays as their door shakes under claws. A hunter cuts through shadows, sweat stinging his eyes. Blood strikes stone, then silence, and the next night it repeats. The citizens never fully see the pattern, but Gehrman knows it deeper than anyone. His workshop is not a place of invention, but of burden, shaping weapons only for the same end to play again and again. The hunters of Yharnam are not simply guards in the night. They are the church's hidden blade, the ones who strike where mistakes walk freely. No matter how many prayers are spoken above, no matter how many sermons are offered at dawn, the workshop remains underneath it all, sharper and bloodier with each hunt. The hunters prove not how strong the church is, but how deep its failure reaches. And for those who gave more than faith, giving their hands and their honor to this fight, ruin waits even faster. The hunters trusted the church as knights trust banners, yet even their devotion cannot stay whole. When their loyalty is tested, they begin to fall as sharply as the beast they struck down. And in that fall, the city learns that even the purest blades cannot hold when the curse of blood stands over every street and behind every door. Even the brightest hunter cannot escape the shadow of the blood. You see this most of all in Ludwig. At one time people loved him. They called him the Holy Blade. When he walked through the streets, families whispered prayers for him. Neighbors looked from their windows to see his shape pass by. He was more than a hunter. He was a sign that someone could stand against the growing curse. His name belonged to banners raised high. His title carried promises that no sermon could. He was not scholar. He was not choir. He was steel shaped into hope. His hunts looked different from the others. Battles ended with triumph. Streets felt lighter. For a short time, Yharnam believed there was a man who could save them. But the city never sees what stands behind the glow of victories. To fight beasts is not only blood on stone. It is noise that stays with you. It is teeth showing up in dreams. It is madness whispering at the edge of your ear. Ludwig carried all of this, even as people stood cheering. By day he walked proud, blade strapped tight, voice strong. At night the shadows closed in. Healing blood still linked every man who fought. No matter his strength, Ludwig could not cut himself free of it. His victories carried sickness inside the triumph. Each time he struck down a beast, the blood pressed deeper into his own. At first, his changes spread quietly. His eyes stayed wider after battles ended. He walked the workshop halls restless, pacing as if waiting for something to burst forth. His words carried fast tones instead of calm ones. Still, people trusted him. Still, families cheered when he returned. But even hunters began to notice. His blows grew heavier, less measured. He moved more with force than with skill. Entire hunts ended in wide messes, not quiet strikes. Signs crept into his face and his movements. For many, though, this looked not like sickness, but zeal. They told themselves he fought with passion. They did not yet mark it as the beast inside. It took time, but the mask began to slip. His skin bent where it should have stayed firm. His arms looked swollen with unnatural muscle. His neck hunched lower than before. His own soldiers glanced away when he passed too close. The hero they built in their mind did not match the man standing before them. But when people know hope depends on one figure, they hide their doubt. They avoid saying what they see. They call each change a scar from battles well fought. They call strange sounds in his throat signs of strain. No one dares name it for what it is. Hunts under Ludwig turned into storms. Hunters spoke afterwards of ground torn to mud by blood. Victories left nothing untouched. Where once his arm guided cautious strikes, now it swung endlessly until the enemy stopped moving, until stone cracked, until banners fell and could not be raised again. He stood in the middle of it all, blade shaking, sweat pouring. And when the fight was over, his men saw not triumph, but a figure breathing as if torn free from some nightmare too long. For them, it was not just beasts he battled. It was something inside himself pressing outward. The moment of change, the point past no return, came as it always does. His hero's shape bent entirely. He turned into the very thing he hunted. The great holy blade became loud with guttural cries. His figure swelled to monstrous size. His mind broke into fragments. The same crowd who once blessed his name could never face him again. He ceased to be man. He ceased to be hunter. He became beast. The picture is simple, as it always remains in memory. A knight's banner, once tall, falls and is trampled into the mud. The crowd no longer cheers. They turn their faces away. The silence grows louder than any fire or howl. No child shouts his name. No woman waves her hand as he passes. All they see now is the proof that no one, not even him, can outlast the curse of blood. In the workshop, hunters did not speak of it often, but when they cleaned their blades, they knew. In Ludwig's fall, they saw their own reflection. They wiped off blood that shone too dark. They folded cloaks that weighed too heavy. They wondered when it would come for them, because he had been above them, stronger, surrounded by more faith. If he could not resist, then none could. Each saw his fall mirrored as their own waiting future. Fighting did not save him. Fighting would not save them. The curse of blood does not care for honor. It does not pause for loyalty. You may stand with firm will, but the old blood lies deeper than choice. Ludwig's tragedy proves the point. His endless hunts looked at first like salvation, but his final form shows the truth that every hunter carries still. The price of loyalty to the church is becoming what you destroy. To serve as long and as faithfully as he once did is no shield. It is only a march toward the inevitable. For Yharnam, the lesson landed heavy. People who once whispered blessings now whispered fears. If even the holy blade could fall, what defense did any of them have? Even noble heroes were undone. Even legends became beasts. It stripped away the comfort that strong arms could defend them. It forced them all back into solitude, knowing only the church's cycles pressed them onward. Ludwig's fall became the mark that no hero stands outside the reach of the blood. His end left no clear victory. It left silence. Streets heavy with whispers. Hands clutching doors faster. A city once built on prayers for healing now felt trapped inside both sickness and cure. For when those strongest among them bend to the curse, what hope remains? This truth gave shape to Yharnam's despair. They no longer trusted in steel. They no longer believed in names of honor, because each name, once praised, fell silent. You walk through Yharnam after Ludwig's fall, and the streets feel different. No banners wave. No cheers meet hunters when daylight comes. The markets hush faster at night. Children cling to their parents in a way sharper than before. Fear lingers longer in each word. The church still preaches above. The hunters still strike below. But in the minds of people, one image presses harder. The sight of the holy blade, once bright, now crawling as beast through blood and mud. For hunters, his memory is heavier. They sharpen saws with hands that tremble faintly. They watch blood drip from their tools and think of their own coming change. They whisper in silence as if words might slow the curse. They pray not for mercy, but simply for one hunt more before the shift takes them. Each shadow on a wall becomes a warning. Each howl in the distance feels not like enemy, but like self. Gehrman keeps sending them forward. He watches them take up their arms. He watches their backs as they step into streets. He knows their end. He remembers Ludwig's. He says nothing. He only continues shaping tools for hands that one day will twist. His workshop is not a place of victory. It is a place that teaches how men dissolve. Ludwig's story is in every weapon laid on his tables, and so the curse of heroism shows itself. To rise higher only means to fall harder. To be beloved means to be mourned deeper. The church pushed men into battles without end. The men fought each night until their bodies shifted. They put faith into banners that tore when dragged through blood. And every name once raised in praise ended the same way. Ludwig proves it plain. Yharnam learns nothing is safe. No form of honor, no level of faith, no sheer force of will can stand endlessly against the old blood. The hunters carry this truth now. They act still, killing beasts each night, but they know their future, just as they knew Ludwig's past. They step forward with faces set, knowing one day no return waits. And the city expects it as well. In silence, they admit that what happened to Ludwig will happen to all. Ludwig's fall marks more than one man. It mirrors the healing church itself. The hunters believed themselves guided by purpose. The people believed themselves protected by power. But the cycle strips them bare. Just as Ludwig turned into beast, the church which raised him bends into the same ruin. His end becomes not singular, but emblem. He is the blade that shined, then broke, the banner lifted, then buried. And so, the fall of hunters mirrors the fall of the institution they served. No one in Yharnam could stop it, and no one tried. The hunt, built on loyalty, eats through every name. The curse spreads from one hero to the next. It is not a question of if, but when. And the face of Ludwig, once held high, is proof on a scale so clear that even those who refuse to speak see it outlined across their minds. His life marks the truth that no hero outlasts the blood. His death plants the shadow that covers all the rest. And from his ruin, it becomes easier to see that the church will follow the same line. Yharnam believes itself to be held together by holy order, but it is already breaking, its divisions scattered. The fate of the hunters is the fate of the church, and just as Ludwig's fall ended the dream of a savior, the fall of the healing church will end the dream of salvation itself. Was it beasts that ruined Yharnam, or the scholars who searched too far, or the hunters who bled themselves in the dark? Or was it the church itself that stood at the root of it all, shaping every choice and seeding the city's downfall with its ambitions? You stand in a place where all of these groups exist, and yet none can be separated. They are tied to one another, each produced by the same first act. They fight, they pray, they fall, but all of them carry the weight of one decision made long before the city burned. That decision belonged to Lawrence. His hand reached for the old blood, and his hand built the walls of the healing church. From that moment, every later story begins. Lawrence did not begin with intent to harm. He sought mercy and aid for a people caught in illness, but his path carried no pause. He chose action when silence was needed. He drank what his master warned against, and he gave it to the people waiting at their doors. The first cures brought joy, but behind them grew something else. Out of his choice, beasts sprang, the same blood that mended bones and lungs split bodies in ways families could not explain. Because of this, hunters became needed, men taught to strike at those deformed by the cure. Because of this, the city knelt under both miracles and executions. From Lawrence's choice, the factions began. None of them would exist if not for that first reach toward forbidden blood. Willem had warned him once with simple words. The master told him not to seek blood, not to lift it as answer. His restraint came from seeing what could never heal. To ignore that voice was to plant disease itself into the heart of the city. Lawrence's students did not hear his teacher's words as weight. They heard delay only, a hesitation that kept people suffering. They made themselves believe that to act was noble, but the cost showed quick. Ignoring that warning opened disease, betrayal, and sudden fractures inside their order. The people who built new chapels did not realize it, but each stone laid was on ground already broken. What healed bodies soon turned to war. Flames rose in old Yharnam as beasts wandered in streets where children once played. Hunters burned houses, stacking bodies high. The cure no longer stayed inside vials. It spread into a cycle that stretched across nights. People lined up in daylight for blood, and hunters worked in darkness to erase its outcomes. Where one hand of the church offered salvation, the other struck down life with steel and fire. The same streets heard both songs of regeneration and screams cut short. Healing turned into the excuse for violence, and war grew in places where no foreign army stood. The choir carried ambition another way. They did not hold blades or step into ash-filled streets. Their eyes looked upward, away from stone and soil. But communion turned quickly into madness. They whispered to ebrietas, seeking guidance not from humanity, but from voices unreachable by common men. Their worship lost touch with Yharnam. Basement chambers echoed not with words of support, but with strange tones spoken to a creature whose form no citizen could bear to see. Their search for vision cut ties with people. What began as holy guidance twisted into estrangement. Minds filled with stars rather than need of the city beneath them. Communion melted into madness, even if they did not admit it. Mensis stepped even beyond this. They did not accept sight as enough. They tore deeper, binding cords, chanting over remains, calling for a power to answer. But their act forced the red moon into sight. It stripped away peace from the sky and made Amiglade bodies hang over towers. Scholars vanished into nightmare, their minds trapped where no dawn could release them. Rituals meant for truth left corpses in worn-out chairs and shells that wandered empty halls. All of it traced back to ambition. Ambition that did not know pause. None among them remembered their master's restraint. None stayed at silence. Their pursuit cracked their own existence. And the hunters who were made to solve these problems became victims too. They began as guardians and ended as beasts. Each step forward in blood stained them closer to what they chased. They whispered prayers before each strike, yet the old blood pressed inside them, bending their bodies in the same fashion. Ludwig's fall gave this truth a face. Even those who carried hope above banners could not stay as men. Guardians turned into monsters, mirrors of the plague they killed. The line between man and beast faded, until even the most faithful were crushed under its weight. None of the branches returned to restraint. None of them listened to the words their founder once ignored. The hunters pursued an endless cycle of steel. The choir listened to cold stars. Mensis locked itself in dreams louder than death. Each sought transcendence. Each sought more than simple humanity. And every one of them paid cost heavier than the relief their work gave. They bent into extremes that rejected the silence they once feared. Willem's warning lived unbroken in memory, but none of them used it. They took his words and left them shut inside past halls. The people of Yharnam lived inside this cage. The streets bore them. Stained cobbles soaked in blood marked where neighbours once walked. The alleys echoed with claws sharp on stone. Hunters stomping boots. Families shuttering windows. They survived not under faith, but under constant eyes. Hunters watching. Sermons demanding trust. Choirs locking themselves away. The people did not hold control. They were pressed into a net woven from secrecy. Each day they knelt beside the altar, passing vials and repeating the chants. Each night doors shook as beasts roared against wood, while hunters carried bodies to burning pyres. They lived inside a prison not of bars, but of cycles that came from the very core of their church. The healing church becomes a true maker of all this. They claim to heal, but their vials built the plague. They claim to guide, but their factions splintered in secrecy. They claim to defend, but their hunters joined the nightmare they opposed. The church did not protect Yharnam from the hunt. It created the hunt. Every path tied back to them, and each choice pressed the city further into falling night. Their ambition lifted steeples taller than houses. Their ambition carved statues, built cathedrals, raised banners. The city looked proud because of them. Yharnam's strength sprang from their blood sales and their faith. But the same ambition ended those lives, staining those cobbles, filling air with smoke, drawing monsters into doorways. What they raised up, they themselves destroyed. The cycle did not happen by curse alone, but by the work of the healing church's own decisions. Their blood builds Yharnam. Their blood destroys it. Their secrets sustain its nightmare. No citizen could close eyes and find peace, because the nightmare does not fade. Scholars clawed through reality into dream and never came back. Hunters exchanged their own bodies for the curse. Ministers whispered to stars that did not answer in kind, and families shut their doors with no defense left but fear. Every stone of Yharnam is caught in it, sealed beneath a sky that will not return to normal. You stand amid these towers, and you see what remains. Bells ring from spires, prayers shout through thin air. Boots knock against long bridges pressed over canals. Yet underneath, the city feels tied into loops that will not open. The healing church does not plan to end the hunts. The hunts themselves are their creation, their way of keeping order controlled by fear. As long as the church exists, blood flows. As long as it flows, beasts remain. As beasts remain, hunters burn. And as hunters fall, the church trains new ones. The nightmare continues because the healing church continues. The people are left without release. Choices bend around them, but none of them end in freedom. If they pray, they drink blood and risk turning. If they seek cover, hunters drag their loved ones outside. If they trust, their leaders abandon them for visions and stars. The path never breaks. Every answer hides new pain behind it. Every cure hides its claws. The church remains as architect, the walls closing tighter generation through generation. Was it beasts that ruined Yharnam? Was it hunters that failed? Or scholars who pursued too far? You see now it was the church itself. Born from Lawrence's ambition and bound by cycles too strong to stop. It was men who thought mercy could be forced through untested blood. It was leaders who ignored calls for silence and restraint. It was ambition carried on so far that it bent not only their city but their own flesh. This is the shape of Yharnam's fall. The healing church stands as its heart. Their ambition lined every street with prayer halls and stone towers. Their blood lifted and then cursed. Their divisions pressed beasts into homes, scholars into nightmares, guardians into monsters. They are the builders of the hunt, the creators of the cage. They are the reason Yharnam never wakes from its long night. The people walk inside this nightmare. Their feet scrape stained cobbles where smoke never clears. Above them, spires cast shadows instead of light. Bells ring, but not to save. They ring to remind. The city looks alive, but behind its skin only the cycle turns. The healing church made it so. No ending comes for them save continuation of the same curse. It passes down without escape. Only endings remain within Yharnam, and none of them are free. The healing church never shielded Yharnam. Every vial of blood, every sermon carried seeds of its own destruction. What the people thought was mercy became the reason their nights filled with claws and ash. To resist the old blood was to remain ordinary, fragile, still human. To embrace it was to design a hunt that could never stop. You stand with that truth now. The cure and the curse are the same thing. When healing is offered too quickly, the cost hides until it is too late. Consider that every answer we seek may carry its own shadowed price.